It's Tuesday, July 26th, and this is your coffee break on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski with a look at the latest Connecticut news, including several children and 2 adults rescued from Long Island Sound yesterday, and Darien and Hartford police working together to nab car thieves, and a lot more. We also have the forecast, a Nutmeg sports update, and a look back on this day in history, all brought to you today by Frank Granito. But first, on to today's headlines. Milford firefighters rescued 2 adults and 8 children from Long Island Sound Monday afternoon after the group ran into trouble along the sandbar leading to Charles Island. At about 1:10 in the afternoon, Milford's 911 dispatch center received a call from a bystander reporting that 10 people were being overcome by a rising tide. The incident occurred in the waters of Long Island Sound between Silver Sand State Park and Charles Island. The group, consisting of 2 adults and 8 children from Glastonbury, had walked out to the island on the sandbar that becomes visible during low tide. Having misjudged the tide, the group quickly became overcome while attempting their return to shore, according to Fire Battalion Chief Anthony Fabrizi. Milford firefighters responded to the area with 3 marine units, including a jet ski that is equipped for water rescue. Upon arrival at the scene, fire personnel found all of the children in distress and barely able to maintain their heads above the water. The firefighters quickly rescued the 2 youngest children and returned them to shore, and then Milford Fire's Marine Units 1 and 2 next arrived and took the remaining victims to shore, where they were evaluated. No injuries were reported. Due to budget cuts, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection does not have lifeguards at Silver Sands Beach on Mondays or Tuesdays. There have been several drownings and near drownings at that sandbar that leads to the island due to swift undercurrent in that area, but you can get more information on that at milfordmirror.com. And Darien and Hartford police worked together to make arrests in the theft of 4 vehicles and burglarizing of 10 vehicles in the area of Noroton Bay in the early morning hours of July 25th. Shortly after 6 a.m., Darien police received a report of a stolen vehicle from Mayflower Road residents in the Noroton Bay section of Darien. While officers were investigating the car theft, it was determined that several other vehicles had been burglarized and that more had been stolen. In all, 4 vehicles were stolen and 10 were burglarized. Investigation revealed that approximately 4 in the morning, at least 3 individuals entering numerous unlocked parked vehicles in driveways on the roads of Noroton Bay. Through investigation, police were able to track all 4 stolen vehicles down, and at about 12 in the afternoon, Hartford officers contacted Darien detectives and advised them that they had located one of the stolen vehicles, a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and attempted to stop it. That vehicle did engage officers in pursuit, but due to dangerous nature, that pursuit was terminated a short time later. However, later in the day, police again located that vehicle and detectives pursued it and were then able to stop the vehicle and took 4 occupants into custody. Arrested were a 17-year-old male juvenile from Hartford, a 17-year-old male juvenile from East Hartford, as well as Gerald Jackson, a 19-year-old from Hartford, and Katarina Harris, a 19-year-old from New Britain. You can get more information on that story at DarienTimes.com. And in other news today, the Stamford Advocate reports that Stamford police have identified the victim of Friday's shootout in the city's South End as 24-year-old Jason Raffaelli of Jacksonville, Florida. Raffaelli, whose previous addresses include nearby Pound Ridge, New York, remains in serious condition at Stamford Hospital, police said. The man was found lying on the street at about 12:30 in the morning Friday with gunshots to his chest, abdomen, and legs. The shooting, the second one that night, took place near the corner of Cedar and Henry Streets. During the investigation, police arrested the victim's friend, Juan Peralta, on weapons charges. Police believe that Peralta and the victim, both of whom were armed, had fired back at those shooters. Police said that the variety of shell casings found at the scene indicate that there was more than one shooter, and those shooters, who are still at large, were likely on foot. And Orange police are investigating a fatal crash that occurred over the weekend on Route 34, killing a West Haven man. Shortly after midnight Saturday night into Sunday morning, Orange police responded to a serious motor vehicle crash on Derby Avenue, just west of the intersection with Racebrook Road. The initial investigation showed that a black Honda Civic was headed westbound toward Derby at a high rate of speed when it lost control and left the roadway, crashing into a large boulder and a fence. The Orange Volunteer Fire Department responded to extricate the driver, identified as 22-year-old Abraham Evans of West Haven. Evans was the only occupant of the vehicle and was pronounced dead on the scene. The investigation into that crash is ongoing, and anyone who may have witnessed it is asked to contact police at 203-891-2130. And Darien police arrested an Iowa man for burglary and the theft of cigarettes from the BP gas station on the Post Road. An officer responded to a burglary alarm at about 2 a.m. on July 24th and found that a glass door at the station had been smashed. Other officers immediately began looking for the burglary suspect and discovered a man running eastbound on the Post Road toward Ledge Road while carrying a backpack. They stopped and identified him as 18-year-old Alex Nelson of West Des Moines, Iowa. Police said Nelson was carrying 6 cartons of cigarettes, all stolen from the BP. He was also carrying a black and gray knit hat and black gloves. Detectives arrived to process the scene and recovered that surveillance video you just saw of Nelson smashing the door, entering the store and the area of the BP station. It was also determined that Nelson has no ties to the Connecticut area and was on his way to Canada to live. He claimed that he had run out of money and committed the burglary in order to sell the cigarettes to buy food. And United Illuminating has scheduled service outages in Bridgeport, Fairfield, and Stratford for Wednesday morning. The service disruptions will allow for maintenance work to take place at 3 UI substations. The outages may be canceled in the event of severe weather, but approximately 2,000 customers in Fairfield will be affected from midnight to 1 a.m., 2,500 customers in Bridgeport from 1:30 to 2:30 a.m., and 1,450 Stratford customers will be affected between the hours of 2:30 to 4:30 a.m. You can get a full list of the streets that will be affected by those planned outages at StratfordStar.com. But switching gears now, throwing it over to Frank Granito for a look at the forecast. Frank.
Thank you, Kate. A little break from the heat and the sun yesterday with all that thunder and rain, but unfortunately we're right back into the thick of it today. Mostly sunny out there with a high of 93 degrees and occasional gusts of wind right up around 10 miles per hour. It'll be cooling down tonight to around 69 degrees, and we'll have clear skies all the way through to morning. Wednesday will be a little bit cooler as temperatures shouldn't quite get up to 90 degrees, but it will be a hot one again. Clear skies and occasional cloud cover as temperatures will then drop down into the low 70s as we make our way to Thursday. And unfortunately, Thursday does not look as promising as the next 2 days. Mostly cloudy during the day with possible thunderstorms as early in the afternoon. There'll be a high of 91 with the humidity right up around 60%, and those thunderstorms will continue on most likely through the weekend. So a couple nice days here before we really get back into that thunder and rain before this weekend, Kate.
All right, sounds okay, Frank. Thank you. We're going to step out for a break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look back on this day in history. Frank has a Nutmeg sports update, and we have some more news coming up after this. Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
You're watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. Nearly 1 million people have watched our live sports, news, and entertainment programming since the network launched in August 2015. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
We're back on this July 26th edition of your coffee break on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski and Frank Granito filling in for Donald Ang today with a look back on this day in history. Frank, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Kate. And on this day in history, let's start all the way back in 1775, when the office that would later become the United States Post Office Department is established by the Second Continental Congress. Ben Franklin established a system of mail carriers, and his post office is still there in Philadelphia, just about a block away from Independence Hall. Believe it or not, surveys have indicated that the United States has the world's most efficient mail delivery service, with the country's mail carriers delivering 268,894 letters and 2,633 parcels per carrier, more than any other country, to 151 million addresses. All told, the USPS accounts for 40% of the world's mail volume. Jump ahead to 1945 now, and the Labour Party wins the United Kingdom general election of July 5th by a landslide, removing Winston Churchill from power less than 2 months after VE Day and while the war in the Pacific was still being fought. Though voters respected and liked Churchill's wartime record, they were more distrustful to the Conservative Party's domestic and foreign policy record in the late 1930s and felt though the Conservatives were superior at fighting a war, the people trusted the Labour Party to rebuild the country after it. And in 1948, there was this.
After the war ended in victory, Secretary of War Robert Patterson ordered the U.S. Army to review its racial policies. Out of that review came 18 recommendations based on the principle African Americans had a constitutional right to fight. Still, the review didn't recommend fully integrating forces, concluding that would be too radical a step from where the rest of the country was. Eventually, President Harry Truman stepped in and took action.
And in 1948, U.S. President Harry S. Truman signs the Executive Order 9981, desegregating the military of the United States. Until then, blacks in the military worked under different rules that delayed their entry into combat. They had to wait 3 years before they could begin combat training, while a white American would begin training within months of being qualified. Truman's order mandated equality of treatment and opportunity in the military for people of all races, religions, or national origins. That's going to do it for this day in history. Let's send it back over to Kate.
All right, Frank, thanks so much. Great job filling in for Don today. And now I'm going to throw it back to you for a Nutmeg Sports Update.
Thank you very much, Kate. Donald will be back for Nutmeg Sports this afternoon, so we will be holding him accountable then. In sports right now, the 82nd Connecticut Open teed off yesterday at Woodway Country Club in Darien, Connecticut. Anthony Casalino, an assistant pro at Innis Arden Golf Club in Greenwich, was your leader in the clubhouse following an open round 66. He held a one-shot lead over the defending champion Cody Palladino when first-round play was suspended for a second time due to inclement weather, leaving almost half the field with 9 or more holes left in their opening round. Play resumed this morning, and we will have more on the Connecticut Open at Nutmeg Sports at 2 o'clock today.
Thanks. Sorry.
Oh, one more. A local Greenwich teenager is one step closer to his Olympic dreams after qualifying for the Olympic trials in 3 events. Jack Monasse, a member of the Chelsea Pier swim team and former Greenwich Cardinal, will be competing in the 100, 200-meter fly event along with the 100-meter backstroke. Jack is the only swimmer in the state competing in 3 events and currently holds the state record for the 100-meter freestyle, backstroke, and butterfly events. Jack will begin his swimming career for the University of Notre Dame this upcoming fall season. That's going to do it for this Nutmeg Sports Update.
Frank, it's those long summer weekends we've been having.
We
got to get back into the groove.
We are fighting through the 3-day weekends, but that'll do it for this Nutmeg Sports Update. Be sure to tune in today at 2 o'clock where Donald Ang and I will be joined by the new athletic director from Trinity Catholic, Bob Robustelli.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Frank. Getting back to a little more news today. An Ansonia man was booked on multiple charges after a domestic incident July 23rd at New Canaan's Talmadge Hill train station. At approximately 8:35 in the evening, New Canaan police were dispatched to the area of the train station for a report of an individual on the train tracks crying. The area was checked, but no one was found. Officers were then dispatched to Park Street near Radio Shack and made contact with that individual. A subsequent investigation determined that the victim had been assaulted by 44-year-old Jose Acevedo and then was pushed out of the car near the Talmadge Hill train tracks. Acevedo was not located following the incident, but an arrest warrant was issued, and the next day he was taken into custody by Ansonia police. And last Friday, a plan to increase Connecticut rail and bus fares was announced by the state's Department of Transportation and Governor Dannel Malloy. The rate increases are part of the plan to implement the new fiscal year's budget that began July 1st, which will include both expenditure reductions across the department's budget and increased rail and bus fares that will collectively balance the Department of Transportation budget while preserving service, according to a press release from the state. The 5% increase would include all parts of the Metro North New Haven commuter line, including New Canaan, Danbury, and Waterbury branches, and Shoreline East, and would become effective December 1st of this year. On the New Haven line, it would be combined with the 1% increase already scheduled for January, making that total increase 6%. According to the state, the increase in fare would generate about $5.9 million in revenue. The plan also calls for closing what the state called underused ticket windows in Greenwich, South Norwalk, and Bridgeport. But there's a lot more on that plan at DarienTimes.com. And the Wilton Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved a plan to allow temporary generator-powered lights at some of the town's sports field during its July 25th meeting. The lighting proposal was submitted in response to an unsatisfied demand for athletic field usage within the town, particularly in the fall season when the sun sets earlier. The new regulation allows youth athletic organizations like the Wilton Lacrosse Association and Youth Football to obtain a special permit to use the rented portable lights at town and publicly owned fields within 1,500 feet of Route 7. Parks and Recreation would be responsible for scheduling field times and access. The lights would be powered by generators and allow sports organizations to have practice after 5 o'clock on lit fields between October and November. However, there is no intent on making those lights permanent. And Stratford EMS's new Polaris UTV was officially deployed in June. Capable of moving patients from one hard-to-reach area to ambulances located at forward operating areas, the vehicle can accommodate a stretcher or Stokes patient rescue carrying basket. It is equipped with a winch and has limited towing capabilities. It can also accommodate 2 front operators as well as a caregiver and patient in the rear. That unit was purchased for $14,000 through the town's enterprise fund to address the varying environments that Stratford EMS operates in. According to Stratford EMS, during the Stratford Festival, that was used to move a patient through a crowded Main Street to an ambulance area, and during the 2016 Stratford fireworks, it moved a patient from the crowded beach area to an ambulance staging area. And in New Canaan, about 15 East Maple Street residents and the owner of AC Auto Body, located at the corner of East Maple and Main Street, took turns pleading their cases in a lengthy session at the New Canaan Police Commission's meeting last Wednesday. Each side accused the other of being unreasonable, with the homeowners saying that AC Auto Body owner Anthony Cesaro was overstepping by not only parking his trucks too far down the street in front of their residences, but causing a potential danger by blocking the view of drivers making turns from East Maple onto Main Street. According to the New Canaan Advertiser, the commission members listened to both sides, then took various actions, voting 2-1 to spend about $1,000 for a study on sightlines. They then also gave the owner of AC Auto Body an additional parking space in the nearby Center School parking lot in return for him agreeing not to park his truck on the street for multiple hours. We're going to step out for a break, and when we come back, we're going to recap some of the top stories we're following today on your coffee break after this. For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities. With locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford, Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. New Canaan is 6 minutes down the road. New Canaan's a beautiful little town to walk around. I work in Westport. My commute is 20 minutes. It's close to Westchester where my family is, so the location is ideal. There is no other townhome that compares in the area. This is where I want to be.
At Cabbage Patch Nursery School in Ridgefield, playtime is learning time. Using out-of-the-box activities and programs in science, dance, Spanish, Taekwondo, and so much more, learning is made fun. Aside from interactive classrooms, our center features a sensory room, computer lab, and a large outdoor space for playtime fun. Our carefully chosen staff believe in a supportive, safe environment and keeping you updated on your little one's experience. Cabbage Patch Ridgefield, helping shape your child's future. 29 Farrar Lane in Ridgefield. Call 203-340-1250 to register today. What's happening up in Hartford and what's trending in the Nutmeg State?
Join Kate Czaplinski
And Josh Fisher
on CT Pulse live Wednesdays at 12:30 to find out.
We talk to the leaders and newsmakers while breaking down the stories you should be paying attention to each week.
With the help of HAN's editorial cartoonist Doug Smith, we take a humorous look at the news of the week. We talk about everything you were told you should avoid bringing up in polite company.
CT Pulse, Wednesdays at 12:30 on the HAN Network.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN Network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
We're back on this Tuesday edition of Your Coffee Break on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, recapping some of the top stories we're following today, including that Milford firefighters rescued 2 adults and 8 children from Long Island Sound Monday afternoon after the group ran into trouble along the sandbar leading to Charles Island. At about 1:10 in the afternoon, Milford's 911 dispatch center received a call from a bystander that reported that 10 people were being overcome by a rising tide. The group, consisting of 2 adults and 8 children from Glastonbury, had walked out to Charles Island on a sandbar that becomes visible during low tide. Having misjudged the tide, however, the group quickly became overcome while attempting to return to shore. Milford firefighters responded to the area with 3 marine units, including a jet ski that is equipped for water rescue. Upon arrival at the scene, fire personnel found all of the children in distress and barely able to maintain their heads above water. All were rescued and no injuries were reported. Due to budget cuts, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection does not have lifeguards at Silver Sands Beach on Mondays or Tuesdays. And there have been several drownings and near drownings at the sandbar that leads to the island due to the swift undercurrent in that area. And Darien and Hartford police worked together to make arrests in the theft of 4 vehicles and the burglarizing of 10 other vehicles. This occurred in the area of Norotan Bay in the early morning hours of July 25th. Shortly after 6 a.m., Darien police received a report of a stolen vehicle from a Mayflower Road residence in the Norotan Bay section of town. While officers were investigating the car theft, it was determined that several other vehicles had been burglarized and that more had been stolen as well. In all, 4 vehicles were stolen and 10 were burglarized. Investigation revealed that about 4 a.m., at least 3 individuals began entering those vehicles. The Hartford police later stopped one of those stolen vehicles and arrested 4 suspects inside. Arrested were a 17-year-old male juvenile from Hartford, a 17-year-old male juvenile from East Hartford, as well as 19-year-old Gerald Jackson from Hartford and 19-year-old Katarina Harris, a 19-year-old female from New Britain. Darien police said those charged are known to be part of a group that targets neighborhoods in which residents leave their vehicles unlocked and with their keys in them. And in other news, Darien police arrested an Iowa man for burglary and theft of cigarettes from the BP gas station on the Post Road. An officer responded to a burglary alarm there at about 2 in the morning, July 24th, and found that a glass door at the gas station had been smashed. Other officers immediately began looking for the suspect and discovered a man running eastbound on the Post Road toward Ledge Road while carrying a backpack. They stopped and identified him as 18-year-old Alex Nelson of West Des Moines, Iowa. Police said Nelson was carrying 6 cartons of cigarettes, all stolen from BP. He was also carrying a black and gray knit hat and black gloves. It was determined that Nelson has no ties to the Connecticut area and was on his way to Canada to live. Nelson claimed that he had run out of money and committed the burglary in order to sell the cigarettes to buy food. And United Illuminating has scheduled service outages in Bridgeport, Fairfield, and Stratford for Wednesday morning. The service disruptions will allow for maintenance work to take place at 3 UI substations. Those outages will be canceled in the event of severe weather. But approximately 2,000 customers in Fairfield will be affected from midnight to 1 a.m. Wednesday. 2,500 customers in Bridgeport will be affected from 1:30 to 2:30 a.m. And 1,450 Stratford customers will be affected between 2:30 to 4:30 a.m. You can get a full list of the streets that will be affected by those planned outages at stratfordstar.com. And finally, the Ridgefield Fire Department hosted puppy class for 10 puppies in training to become guide dogs on Thursday, July 14th. The Ridgefield Fire Department recently hosted the 10 to become seeing eye guide dogs for the blind. As part of the training they receive, the dogs become accustomed to emergency vehicles and personnel, so that if emergency crews arrive at their owner's house, the dogs do not become scared or excited. Guiding Eyes for the Blind contacted Chief Kevin Tappy for assistance, and he thought that it would be good therapy for the firefighters as well. Guiding Eyes for the Blind is a nonprofit that provides trained guide dogs to men and women who are blind or visually impaired. Really nice story there, but before we wrap things up, let's throw it over to Frank for a final look at the forecast. Frank.
Very nice out today, 93 degrees. It'll be mostly sunny, the occasional wind coming through. Won't be as hot tomorrow, sitting around 88, and again, clear skies. Thursday, though, expect those storms to start rolling in. Thunderstorms in the early afternoon, and they will probably carry all the way through till about Saturday. That'll do it for the weather. For Nutmeg Sports today, we'll have new athletic director Bob Robustelli coming on with Donald Ang and myself as we interview him. We'll take a look at some of the FCAC Olympian hopefuls and keep an eye on some of the baseball teams that are making their way to the World Series now late in summer.
All right. Thanks so much, Frank. And before that at 12:30, of course, you have The Drive with Denise, so be sure to check that out. We're going to wrap things up here on your coffee break, but of course, we will see you tomorrow at 11. Have a great afternoon.